entitled "Neighbor Ripped Out My Heart Monitor, Calling It a Fake Gadget." I never thought I'd have to tell this story, but here we are. Last year, I had a major health scare that left me needing to wear a heart monitor for several months. Little did I know that this medical necessity would lead to the most bizarre confrontation of my life with my next-door neighbor, Karen Wilson. Some background. I'm a 34-year-old software developer working from home. After experiencing some concerning heart palpitations and dizzy spells, my cardiologist prescribed a continuous heart monitor to track my condition. It's a small device attached to my chest with a couple of adhesive patches and wires. Nothing fancy, just essential medical equipment that was literally keeping me alive by monitoring my heart rhythm 24/7. Everything was fine for the first few weeks. I'd gotten used to the device, and my daily routine remained pretty much unchanged. I even started taking short walks in our neighborhood's community garden to build up my strength, as recommended by my doctor. That's where the trouble began. Our neighborhood has always been pretty quiet and friendly, except for Karen Wilson. She moved in about 6 months ago and immediately appointed herself as the unofficial community watchdog. You know the type, always peeking through her curtains, reporting the most minor HOA violations, and generally making everyone's life more difficult than it needs to be. One Saturday morning, I was enjoying my usual walk in the community garden when Karen stormed up to me, her face red with what I can only describe as manufactured outrage. "Excuse me," she screeched, pointing at my chest where the monitor was partially visible under my t-shirt. "What is that device you're wearing?" I tried to stay calm and explained, "It's a heart monitor. My doctor prescribed it." "No, it's not," she cut me off. "I've seen medical devices before, and that looks nothing like them. You're obviously using some kind of recording device to spy on people." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Karen, this is a legitimate medical device. I can show you the prescription and documentation." "Don't you Karen me," she snapped. "I'm on the HOA board, and we have strict rules about recording devices in common areas. You're violating everyone's privacy." Before I could react, she reached out and literally grabbed the monitor, yanking it hard. The adhesive patches ripped from my skin, and the device dangled from its wires. The pain was sharp, but the panic that set in was worse. This device was my lifeline, constantly sending data to my medical team. "Stop," I shouted, stepping back. "You're damaging medical equipment. This is assault." Several neighbors who were out for their morning walks witnessed the whole thing. Mrs. Rodriguez, a retired nurse from 2 doors down, rushed over. "Karen, stop this immediately. That's a COXT heart monitor. I've seen hundreds of patients wear them." But Karen was too far gone in her conspiracy theory. She kept pulling at the wires, screaming about fake gadgets and invasion of privacy. Finally, the device came completely loose, and she threw it to the ground, stomping on it with her designer running shoes. I immediately called 911, while Mrs. Williams helped me sit down on a nearby bench. Within minutes, police and paramedics arrived. Karen tried to play victim, claiming I had threatened her, but multiple witnesses came forward with the truth. Some had even recorded the incident on their phones. The police arrested Karen for assault and destruction of medical equipment. As they led her away, she was still ranting about surveillance devices and community safety. Meanwhile, the paramedics checked my vitals and arranged for immediate transportation to my cardiologist's office for a replacement monitor. But the story doesn't end there. The legal consequences for Karen turned out to be significant. My cardiologist was furious when he heard what happened and wrote a detailed letter about the medical necessity of the device and the potential dangers of interrupting cardiac monitoring. My lawyer used this to build a solid case. Karen was charged with assault, destruction of medical equipment, and interference with medical care. The district attorney took it seriously, especially given the potential life-threatening nature of her actions. She tried to argue that she was protecting the community, but the judge wasn't having any of it. The criminal case ended with Karen getting a suspended sentence, 2 years of probation, and mandatory anger management classes. But that wasn't enough for me or my lawyer. We filed a civil lawsuit for assault, battery, emotional distress, and medical expenses. During the civil trial, Karen's true colors really showed. She tried to paint herself as a concerned citizen who was just trying to maintain community standards. But her story fell apart under cross-examination. My lawyer: Mrs. Wilson, you claim to have extensive knowledge of medical devices. What is your medical background? Karen: well, I watch a lot of medical shows, and that thing didn't look like anything I'd seen before. My lawyer: so you have no actual medical training or expertise? Karen: I don't need training to know when something looks suspicious. My lawyer: are you aware that assaulting someone with a medical device is a felony in our state? Karen: it wasn't assault, I was protecting our community from surveillance. The judge's face throughout her testimony was a study in disbelief. The jury took less than 2 hours to reach a verdict in my favor. They awarded me $75,000 in compensatory damages for medical expenses, emotional distress, and lost work time. But the real kicker was the punitive damages, $150,000 to send a message about interfering with medical equipment. Karen's husband, who had been surprisingly quiet throughout this whole ordeal, finally snapped after the verdict. I overheard him in the courthouse hallway. That's it, Karen. First, the lawsuit about the neighbor's service dog, then the incident with the delivery driver, and now this. I'm done. Apparently, I wasn't the first victim of her entitled behavior, just the one who finally held her accountable. The HOA board, which Karen had so proudly served on, called an emergency meeting the following week. They voted unanimously to remove her from her position and amended the community guidelines to specifically protect residents with medical devices from harassment. Several board members personally apologized to me for not addressing her behavior sooner. The aftermath brought some unexpected positive changes to our community. Mrs. Williams organized a neighborhood health awareness workshop, where medical professionals came to discuss common medical devices and the importance of respecting patients' privacy and dignity. Karen was required to attend as part of her probation. My health improved gradually, and after 6 months, I no longer needed the heart monitor. But the incident left a lasting impact on our neighborhood. People became more aware of invisible disabilities and medical needs. The community garden where the incident happened was renamed the Caring Heart Garden, and new benches were installed with small plaques promoting neighborly kindness and understanding. Karen and her husband listed their house for sale 3 months after the verdict. The day they moved out, several neighbors organized a quiet celebration block party. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone knew what we were celebrating. My new neighbor is a retired elementary school teacher who brings me homemade soup when my heart acts up. She never questions the occasional medical devices I still need to wear for checkups, and she's become one of my closest friends in the community. Looking back, the whole incident was terrifying at the moment, but it led to positive changes. The settlement money helped cover my medical expenses and allowed me to install a top-of-the-line home security system, with cameras that Karen would have hated. More importantly, it showed that standing up to entitled behavior can make a real difference. I still see Karen occasionally at the local grocery store. She always quickly walks the other way, which is fine by me. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she's been doing better after anger management classes and therapy, though she's no longer allowed to serve on any HOA boards in the county. The police officers who responded that day still check on me occasionally during their patrol rounds. Officer Martinez even jokes that my case has become part of their training program on how not to handle suspicions about your neighbors. My cardiologist used my story, with permission, in a medical journal article about the importance of protecting patients with monitoring devices. He says it's helped raise awareness among medical professionals about the challenges their patients might face in public. The incident also inspired our city council to pass a new ordinance specifically protecting people with medical devices from harassment or interference. They called it the Medical Device Protection Act, though some residents just call it Karen's Law. My own experience has made me more aware of others who might be dealing with invisible medical conditions. I've become an advocate in our community for accessibility and understanding. Sometimes the worst experiences can lead to the most positive changes. As for me, my heart condition is under control now. The monitoring period helped my doctors identify and treat the underlying issue. I still take daily walks in the Caring Heart Garden, and sometimes I sit on those benches, thinking about how one person's entitled behavior led to a stronger, more compassionate community. The security cameras I installed captured Karen trying to sneak back into the community garden late one night, about a week before she moved. She was apparently trying to remove the new bench plaques, but triggered the motion sensor lights and ran away. The footage got a good laugh at the next HOA meeting, though we decided not to press charges. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well and letting karma do its thing. These days, when new neighbors move in, they receive a welcome package that includes information about our community's commitment to medical privacy and mutual respect. The incident with Karen became a teaching moment for everyone, showing how quickly entitlement can escalate to dangerous behavior, and how important it is to stand up against it. I've learned that sometimes the biggest bullies are the ones who claim to be protecting others. But I've also learned that most people are kind and supportive when given the chance. For every Karen in the world, there are dozens of Mrs. Rodriguez's and Officer Martinez's who will stand up for what's right. The whole experience taught me that advocating for yourself isn't just about personal justice. It's about creating positive change for others who might face similar situations. Every time I see someone with a visible medical device walking confidently through our community garden, I know that standing up to Karen was worth it. Life has a funny way of turning difficult situations into opportunities for growth and positive change. What started as a frightening confrontation with an entitled neighbor ended up strengthening our community's bonds and creating lasting protections for people with medical needs. Sometimes the best stories aren't about getting revenge, but about turning negativity into something positive that benefits everyone. Well, almost everyone. I heard Karen's new HOA has a strict no surveillance conspiracy theories clause in their bylaws. I wonder why. It's been 2 years since that incident, and I wanted to share an update about how things turned out. You might think the story ended with Karen moving away, but life has a way of bringing things full circle. Last month, I received an unexpected email from Karen's husband, Tom. He was reaching out to apologize and let me know that Karen had been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder that had gone untreated for years. While this didn't excuse her actions, it helped explain some of her paranoid behavior. She'd been getting proper treatment since the incident and had made significant progress. But here's where it gets interesting. Tom mentioned that Karen now needed to wear a heart monitor herself due to complications from a new medication. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. He asked if I would be willing to talk with her about my experience, as she was feeling anxious about wearing a visible medical device in public. I thought long and hard about it. Part of me wanted to ignore the request, but I remembered how scared and vulnerable I felt when I first got my monitor. After discussing it with Mrs. Williamson, my therapist, yes, the incident led me to start therapy, which has been incredibly helpful. I agreed to meet Karen at a neutral location, our local coffee shop. The meeting was awkward at first. Karen looked different, more subdued, less confrontational. She was wearing a cardigan that clearly was meant to hide her own heart monitor, and I could see the fear in her eyes when people walked past our table. "I know saying sorry isn't enough," she started, her voice shaking, "but I want you to know that I think about what I did every day. The therapy and medication have helped me see how wrong I was." I appreciated her honesty, but didn't let her off easy. "What you did could have killed me," I said firmly. "I need to know you really understand that." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I do now. When the doctor handed me my own monitor, all I could think about was how terrified you must have been when I attacked you. I can barely handle the anxiety of wearing it, and nobody's trying to rip mine off." We talked for over 2 hours. She shared her struggles with untreated anxiety and paranoia, while I explained the lasting impact her actions had on my sense of security. It wasn't a friendship reconciliation. Some bridges stay burned, but it was a meaningful conversation about accountability and growth. The meeting led to an unexpected development in our community's medical device awareness program. Karen asked if she could share her story as a cautionary tale. At first I was skeptical, but after seeing her speak at a community health forum, I realized her perspective could help prevent similar incidents. She didn't try to justify her actions, but instead focused on the importance of questioning our assumptions and seeking help for mental health issues before they lead to harmful behavior. The presentation was recorded and has since been used in several HOA training programs across the state. My lawyer called last week to tell me that Karen had voluntarily enrolled in a restorative justice program, even though her probation ended months ago. She's been working with medical device manufacturers to develop better public education materials about their products. Her story is now part of their training documentation on patient harassment prevention. The Medical Device Protection Act, still known locally as Karen's Law, has been adopted by 3 neighboring cities, and there's talk of making it state law. I've been asked to testify at the state capitol about my experience, and I'm working with a patients' rights organization to strengthen legal protections for people with medical devices. My security camera business has taken off. Turns out my experience made me pretty knowledgeable about residential security systems. I've started a small consulting firm helping people with medical devices set up security measures to protect themselves. The company motto is, "Security with Heart," which never fails to make Mrs. Williams chuckle. Last week, I installed a system for a teenager who needs to wear an insulin pump. Her mother had heard about my story and wanted to make sure her daughter felt safe at home. While setting up the cameras, I caught myself thinking about how my worst experience had turned into something that helps protect others. The Caring Heart Garden has become a model for inclusive community spaces. We've added emergency call boxes and improved lighting, and there's always someone walking or sitting on the benches. The garden hosts monthly support group meetings for people with medical devices and their families. Even some of Karen's former defenders have become regular attendees. Tom emailed me recently with an update. He and Karen are divorcing, but it's amicable. He said the incident with me was a wake-up call for both of them about the importance of addressing mental health issues. Karen's doing well with her treatment and has started volunteering at a local hospital, teaching staff about patient perspectives on medical device stigma. My heart condition has stabilized, though I still need occasional monitoring. The difference is that now, when I wear a monitor, I hold my head high. Other patients in my cardiologist's office often ask about Karen's Law, and I share my story as a reminder that standing up for yourself can create positive change. The security footage of Karen's attempted late-night plaque removal has become something of a legend in our HOA training materials. We use it as an example of how security cameras can protect community property, though we've edited out her face, something she thanked me for when we met at the coffee shop. Mrs. Williams retired from the HOA board last month, but not before establishing a permanent community health and safety committee. I was honored when she nominated me as her replacement. My first act was to propose a scholarship fund for residents who need medical devices but struggle to afford them. We named it the Williams Medical Security Fund. Looking back at the past 2 years, I'm proud of how I handled the situation. I didn't let Karen's actions turn me bitter or fearful. Instead, I channeled the experience into creating positive change. The incident could have left me feeling like a victim, but instead, it revealed my strength and helped me find my voice as an advocate. My story has been featured in several medical journals and patient advocacy publications. I always emphasize that while forgiveness is possible, it doesn't mean forgetting or excusing harmful behavior. Real change requires accountability, action, and a genuine commitment to doing better. The new neighbors who bought Karen's old house turned out to be a lovely family. Their youngest daughter has type 1 diabetes, and they specifically chose our community after hearing about our medical device protection policies. Watching her play safely in the garden, wearing her insulin pump without fear, makes all the legal battles and difficult conversations worth it. Officer Martinez still stops by occasionally, now with his new partner. They use my case as an example in their community policing workshops about how to handle disputes involving medical devices. Sometimes, he says, the best police work is about preventing the next incident, not just responding to the current one. I've learned that true strength isn't about winning lawsuits or getting revenge. It's about using your experience to protect others and create lasting change. Karen's entitled behavior could have broken my spirit, but instead, it sparked a movement that's helping people feel safer and more supported in their medical journeys. The incident with Karen taught me that sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead to the most meaningful improvements, not just for ourselves but for our entire community. I'm not grateful for what she did. It was dangerous, illegal, and wrong. But I am proud of how our community responded and the positive changes we've created together. My cardiologist likes to say that hearts are strongest when they're part of a supportive community. Looking at how our neighborhood has transformed, I couldn't agree more. We've turned an act of entitled aggression into a foundation for lasting change, proving that the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better and helping others do the same.